Good morning. How are you guys doing? You having a good time over there? That's where I was going to film my video, so you guys are going to run away now, obviously. You're like, what are you doing out here? Oh, hey there, I didn't see you. Good morning, my friends. Good morning and welcome to the rustic Vaughn Lodge. I had to shift filming positions because those deer, they weren't moving. They're like, we were here first. You go do your own thing someplace else. So I'm giving them their privacy. So, I mean, they're here more often than I am, so they deserve it. So it is Sunday, and you'll notice I didn't have a Sunday penguin up because I didn't bring any penguins up here to the Rustic Vaughn Lodge. But classic literature was on my mind, and one thing that lingers on my mind sometimes with classic literature are all of the books that I haven't read because I'm too busy reading other things. A lot of horror and science fiction, which is not time wasted at all. But there are some classic works that I really want to get to and just haven't yet. My whole life, I've somehow missed out on reading these books. So I've got a list of 10 books that I really feel like I need to get to. And if you've read them, let me know what an idiot I am for not reading them. This first one, I know I'm an idiot for not reading it. This is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. I haven't read any Lewis Carroll at all, and I'm not really sure why. It's not that I have any prejudice against Lewis Carroll or Alice in Wonderland. I rather liked the film when I was a kid, so I don't know why I haven't read this book. It's weird to me. It's one of those things I always intended to get to it and just never did. But I really need to get to it, you know. I should get to that book. And the next one on my list, I feel similar. Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. A writer who apparently wrote a lot of good books, and I haven't read any of them. And I don't know why I've never read Little Women. I know why I never read it when I was younger, you know, when I was a teenager and in my early 20s. And that's because I was reading a bunch of other stuff. That was nothing like Little Women. But yeah, since I've been an adult, you'd think I would have picked this book up, since it's apparently a great book, but I just haven't. Little Women. I've neglected Little Women. And the next one I have on my list is The Arabian Nights, which I have read some of. It's a long work. I think the Penguin edition of the complete 1001 Nights is 3 volumes long, and they're thick volumes. Those are probably the ones I'm going to get. Flies. This is what I get for filming outdoors. But yeah, I need to carve out the time to read the whole thing. I need to do that. It's one of those books I've always intended to read the whole thing, and I just haven't. And, you know, I'm getting on. I'm knocking on death's door here. I'm an elderly person. I need to get to it before I kick the bucket. So, you know, The Arabian Nights. Need to get to the whole thing. Read the whole thing. Next is a couple Charles Dickens novels. I've read quite a bit of Charles Dickens. I like Charles Dickens. He has some faults, of course, but I really like Charles Dickens. I think he was a very talented writer, and I think that accounts for his great success, both in the past, in his own time, and today. He never seems to get old, Charles Dickens. But I've never read Bleak House. I've never read that book. And perhaps even worse, I've never read Hard Times. I don't know if that's worse or not. I don't know which one of those books is better, but I haven't read either one of them, and I need to. So, from Charles Dickens, I need to read Bleak House and Hard Times. I need to get to those books. Haven't read those. This next one is really egregious. Like, I'm an idiot for not having read this book. This next book is The Possessed by Fyodor Dostoevsky. a tremendously wonderful writer, and I haven't read this book. I've got 2 copies of this book. I've got 2 different translations of this book sitting around the manor, and I haven't read either one of them. And I always intend to, and I always put it off for some reason. I don't know why, but I haven't read. I haven't read this yet. Weird. I've got to get to this. I don't know that I'll get to it this year. Probably not. I've got a lot of stuff that I already have on my plate for this year, but I definitely have to move that to the forefront. The Possessed by Fyodor Dostoevsky. And the next one is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. In fact, it's been decades since I've read any Jane Austen at all, and I've never read Sense and Sensibility, which is odd. You think I would have read that. I was going to read the complete novels of Jane Austen in July for, Jane Austen July. I was just going to read everything. But it looks like I'm going to be reading Lonesome Dove for most of July, or for a good chunk of it. That's a big book. So I'm afraid Jane Austen might be pushed off until next year. But I will get to it. And Sense and Sensibility, need to read it. And like I said, I want to read all of her books because it's been too long, and I know I'm going to have different feelings and opinions now than I did when I was younger. The next one, I literally don't know anybody who's read this book, and that would be Victor Hugo's The Man Who Laughs. I'm not even sure it's considered a classic anymore, although, his other 2 books, The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Les Mis, of course, are both classics. And I love those books. I like my long-winded Victor Hugo. And I've always been intrigued with The Man Who Laughs, but I've literally never run into anybody who's read it. And I can't find a copy. I can't find a physical copy of it that looks decent. None of the reprint houses like Penguin or Oxford or anybody that I know of has a English translation of this book. So I'm probably going to have to read it on Kindle when I do read it. And the only people I know who might have read it, Steve Donahue's probably read it. Jack Rambling Raconteur probably has read it. But I don't know anybody else who has read this book. Have you read this book, The Man Who Laughs? If you have, let me know. The next one is from Wilkie Collins. This is another one where it might be a stretch calling it a classic, for some people anyway. And that would be No Name by Wilkie Collins. He's pretty hit or miss, Wilkie Collins. Some of his stuff's really great. Some of his stuff is like, And so I don't know how No Name is going to be, but I do want to read No Name. So No Name by Wilkie Collins. This last one, it physically pains me that I haven't read this yet. The only reason I haven't read this yet is because it's so long and it's going to be such an investment of time. And that would be The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by Edward Gibbon, which I've only read some of. I need to just sit down and read it. I have a complete edition of this book waiting for me. And I just, like I said, it's going to take a ton of time to read. And I've never just set that time aside to read it. And I really need to do that. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling like I need to read that book. Like the fact that I haven't read it yet really weighs on my mind. And there are gunshots. People are always shooting things, I'm in the United States. People are always shooting things here. Just how it goes, I guess. Fortunately, that's from a ways off. It's from a distance. If I was back home, it would be like 2 blocks over. Anyway, where was I? Oh yes, The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. So I need to read this book. I really need to read it. Out of everything on this list, that is the book I feel like I need to read the most. Still shooting. Okay, guys. That's all I have for you for this morning. I do have another video that'll be up later on today. for the Avengers Forever read along. A very different video. Last part, part 4. That'll be up to today. I've got the Robert E. Howard Show tomorrow, where I'm doing something a little different, talking about a different book tomorrow, Al Murik, Robert E. Howard's Interplanetary Adventure, which, unlike the books I just talked about, I've read several times. Of course I have. Okay, guys, I will catch you next time.